Hey guys, Nathan McCullough here, Integrative nutritionist, and I am one of the health coaches for Glamor and Purpose. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about fasting and its relationship to spirituality. There's been thousands of years of fasting that's been done in a spiritual or religious context. And there's a very specific, there's a lot of different reasons for that. But today I want to go over a little bit of why is it that, because we do fasting now, it's become a really popular thing to do. And up until now, we focused a lot on the physical benefits and the mental benefits that come from fasting. But there is another component, and that has been really the focus historically on why fasting has been used in essentially every major religion in the history of humanity has included this principle of fasting for extended periods of time in order to create not only the physical but also this sort of mental, physical, and spiritual cleansing. And I think it's very interesting, and I think it's very important when you're actually taking up the practice of fasting that you also incorporate this other spiritual component to it, because not only can you lose a lot of weight, not only can you become lighter, feel lighter, have better focus and acuity in terms of the mental side of things, but there's also this incredible benefit that comes from the spiritual and the mindfulness side of things, that if you're not aware or focused on them, it's possible to actually miss. And I think it's really important that we focus on that, because it gives you so many more benefits in your life than even the mental or physical side of things. So we want to really get tuned into that so we can take advantage of the spiritual aspects of fasting. So you may not know this, but actually the definition of diet and religion are the same. So if you trace them back, but a diet and a religion both mean a way of life, right? It's a way of orienting yourself. And if you think about your everyday life, right, for all of us, the things that become our guiding principles and our focus are oftentimes not our spiritual God. They're oftentimes the gods that take over in our ordinary life, our phone, right? Our food. These different things become such a preoccupation for us in our everyday life that oftentimes we become, our spiritual path becomes very secondary to our survival needs and what we perceive as our survival needs. But we get caught in these cycles of reaction, right? Whether it's a craving to a food, or whether it's a stimulation from phone, or from social needs, things like that, right? They become our dominant focus because it's immediacy driven. It's survival driven, it's craving driven. We have all this stimulation in our life when it comes to, especially the smartphones and different things, where they really become our gods in that sense, that they're that towards which we're oriented. And so I thought that's interesting that both diet and religion have the same idea of a way of life. Okay, and that's why I think that when you cleanse the diet side of things, the food side of things, it really leads into this more spiritual cleanse as well. And actually, Gandhi said that the eyes, when it comes to the outer world, are the same as fasting when it comes to the inner world. And Gandhi was very, very aware of the spiritual benefits of fasting, right? So he made an analogy between the eyes and the outer world, and fasting in the inner world, in the sense that when you do fasting the right way, and we'll go through this a little bit more, it gives you this clarity of vision. And we don't mean vision by perception. It doesn't mean the ability to see physical objects, but your capacity for your vision for your own life, your understanding of who you are and your connection with the world around you, right? Your appreciation for nature, your appreciation for sun, your appreciation for food and water, and these things that we take for granted. Your ability for appreciation and gratitude around those things become very, very heightened when you remove them for periods of time, right? Because when you remove them, all of a sudden you start to recognize how dependent, or how you have this immediate gratification relationship with food, for example. When you remove it for a period of time, you start to become aware of, oh wow, that's my relationship with food. Interesting. And so it allows you to have this capacity for introspection as well. So we want to talk about not only physical cleansing, but spiritual cleansing. So if you think about the physical side of things, the cleansing process allows you to cleanse your organs, right? Your brain being one of them, right? It helps you remove toxins from your system, and it also helps you heal your digestion. And a lot of people don't know that digestion takes over the majority of the energy in your body is expended in digestion, right? So when you heal your digestive process, that allows for a lot of redirection of energy as well. And as you cleanse out your organs, right, like your mind as well, the more mental focus that you have, the more clarity that you have, the more energy that you get back as well, because we spend a lot of time, right, in mental processes, right? So it allows for that cleansing, not only of the physical organs, right, but the energy that is expended with those organs is also healed as we shift down gears, right? So that when digestion takes over a less of a role, right, it allows for energy to be expended in other areas. And our spiritual awareness is in large part due to the energy that we have, right? The more energy that you have, the more attuned that you are to your environment as well. So it's not just cellular rejuvenation, right? So we've talked about in fasting, you have the autophagic response, or the autophagy, which is the cleansing of the cells, and it's getting rid of the old cells and the old things that aren't working in your system. You also have this spiritual rejuvenation in the sense that you have this energy and these things that come up. And what happens when you break, for example, these cycles that you go through each day, where it's like you eat food and then your blood sugar goes up and then it comes down and then you crave more food, right? What ends up happening is a lot of your cravings start to determine your thinking, right? So even your food choices unconsciously are made not by you, right? It's not your authentic hunger that's making these decisions. It's actually your cravings that are making these decisions, right? So when you go through a withdrawal, for example, for sugar is the big one, right? You have sugar, you eat it, it gives you a dopamine spike, which makes you feel good for a little while. It also increases your blood sugar. But when that blood sugar crashes back down, right, anything that goes up quickly that comes down quickly, then what happens is you get that craving. And without you knowing it, that craving is making you scan your environment to eat something, right? And we're always usually choosing something that's quick, right? Something that's super convenient, meaning in our environment. So what happens is when you break these patterns of craving, right, where you're just in immediate gratification, you're in this push-pull, this response mechanism. When you break that, it allows for your authentic hunger to begin to arise. And it allows you to take control over, again, take control back in terms of what you are choosing for your food. So it's not your cravings choosing your food, it's actually your conscious mind. You are allowed back into the equation when it comes to your food choices. And so that's an incredibly empowering moment where it's not your biology and it's not your chemistry and it's not your cravings that's choosing, it's you. It's your authentic hunger, right? And a lot of that can be very emotional, right? So a lot of people emotionally eat. They feel sad, they eat. They feel happy, they eat. They have any sort of emotional something that comes up, and a lot of us, we turn to our phone or food or alcohol or something like that, but for the majority of people it's food, right? So we emotionally eat constantly. So when we remove that crutch, right, a lot of these emotions will come up, and we're able to really deal with them and process them in ways where if we have food that we have at hand that can just change our state really quickly, right? We use that as a crutch. When you take that away, it allows you to really experience and process your feelings and your emotions, right? So when you're in a fasting period, that's why we always recommend people, you get enough sleep, right? You do less intense exercise. You slow down a bit. You get massage. You go for a walk, right? Because you're going to go through these periods of times where you might actually be a little bit up and down emotionally in the beginning, right? But if you give yourself the space to process those, right, you can cleanse yourself, right, of a lot of these negative also brain patterns and thought patterns that you suppress by using food in lots of different ways, right? When you get rid of the food, it allows you to really authentically process these thoughts and feelings. And if you give yourself the space to do self-care, right, when you're on the fasting process as well, you can heal a lot of the relationship with yourself. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But the next thing that opens up in this process is a redirection of your mind and your focus and your thought process, right? Again, when you remove the food and you remove a lot of this immediate gratification in this instant sort of rapport that we have with food and different things, what allows it to open up is a focus on the things that are really, really important. Right? Not what's pushing and pulling us, not our immediate reactions, but what's really important to you in your life. And so when you get deeper into a fast, we really recommend journaling, right? Taking time for either prayer or meditation and the things that are important to you. Oftentimes, when you remove these toxins and your brain becomes clear and you have this renewed focus and this renewed energy, your prayer, your meditation, even your sights and your sounds when you're walking around in your life, these things are dramatically enhanced. But if you're not looking for them or you're not using that intentionally, you can miss it, right? So you have this opportunity to do your prayer, to do your meditation, to take this time to do your yoga, to do massage, these different things, right? Where you can have this really heightened sense of appreciation and gratitude, and you can have deeper meditations, you can have deeper prayer sessions and communication with your higher power because you have a much deeper connection and communication with yourself as a human being as well, right? So that's what Gandhi was talking about, right? The eyes in life. As you go through the fast, your senses are heightened, including your vision, your ocular vision, but also your internal vision, your clarity of vision that you have for yourself is increased as well. So this is a great period of time in your life for personal reflection, self-awareness, and to think about, right, what is it that you want to create for the rest of your year. We really encourage you to stop, slow down, and really start to consider some of those things because you're in a great mental, physical, and spiritual place to be able to make those decisions. So much of our time in life, because our vision is clouded by our blood sugar spikes, by our emotional situation, by we're in these constant cycles of reaction, that our judgment is not so good, right? What we believe is possible for us is really dramatically limited, right? Because our energy is low, we're focused on so many different things, we have so many different stimulation things coming in, that we don't have a clear vision for where we want to go in our life. So this is a great time to be able to do that as well. So that brings me into the next thing, which is times of fasting are really increase your muscle for mindfulness, because your awareness is dramatically increased. So anytime you're in a situation when you're in a fasting period, you're going to have these hunger pains and you're going to have these cravings that come up, especially in the beginning, right? And what that allows for is your ability to observe yourself and your capacity to practice mindfulness, right? So when a craving comes up or a desire comes up, you have this amazing capacity during this time to look at that and say, wow, it's interesting. Where is that hunger coming from? Is it a physical thing? Is it a biological thing? Is it an emotional thing? Right? Where is that actually coming from? And you can start to bring a lot of mindfulness into your everyday, your way of life, right? You can bring that mindfulness into your way of life, and you can start really discriminating and figuring out, right, where a lot of these urges and cravings and desires and wantings are actually coming from. And you can ask yourself, is that something that I want for myself in my life? And my guess is for all of us, right, most of our cravings and our desires and our wantings and the things that are the main focus of our attention are not things that we actually want to be things that we spend energy on, things that we're putting a lot of our energy into. So the mindfulness component of these things is what allows you to really start to evaluate, right? Where am I spending my energy? Where are these thoughts and feelings coming from, right? So you have a much stronger ability to take a step back and evaluate whether these things are actually what you want in your life. And as this process goes on, if you can be much more conscious and you can use this mindfulness practice to really start thinking about your life as a whole and start determining what are the things that you want, what are the things that you not want, this amazing experience is opened up, right? There's a possibility for you to develop a much stronger and much more authentic relationship with yourself. Right? You can start evaluating your thoughts and your feelings, and you can start feeling your feelings much more deeply, because you're not suppressing them and avoiding them by different stimulants and different strategies, right? You can really allow yourself to feel them authentically, and you can develop this really incredible relationship with yourself. And this is where I think a lot of the spiritual tradition comes in, because as you develop a stronger relationship with yourself and you become much more attuned through your body, you become much more attuned to the spirit, right? So your body, as you go through this physical cleanse, becomes a tool by which you become attuned to your spirit as well, right? So you gain this really. You have the ability. It doesn't just come, right? This is something that you have to really start practicing. Fasting opens up the space for you to start paying attention, but being much more mindful of this. So you can really become much more attuned to your body. And if you listen to your body, then you can become attuned to the spirit. And when you become much more attuned to the spirit, then you have that direct connection, right, to whatever your higher power is. You know, whether you call it God or the universe or, you know, whatever that is for you. This channel opens up in your system where you can develop a much stronger connection with whatever your spiritual path is. And I think that's incredibly important, right? And you know, a lot of the things that we take for granted start becoming they start becoming opportunities for you to express appreciation and gratitude, right? Not only for your own body, so it starts with food, right? You can start appreciating the food, right? You can start appreciating the water. You can start appreciating your relationship with the environment. You can start, there's a metaphor, or there's an analogy between that, and then you can start appreciating, wow, these different functions in your body. You can start appreciating that you have a body, right? And then you can start appreciating the people that are in your life, your loved ones that you take for granted. You can start appreciating your relationship with your higher power, that because we are so immersed in immediacy and self-gratification, a lot of times that authentic, true, plugged in relationship with our higher power is not there. So this is a time to renew that relationship with the Spirit. And the last thing that I will touch on, which is something that I think very deeply about and I think is incredibly important, and the more that I've done fasting for myself personally and sort of gone through this process that we've talked about today, which is starting with the body, and then the purification of the body, the cells, then the purification of the mind, right? Then the heightening of the awareness and energy that comes from the purification of the mind, that allows you to go through this spiritual rejuvenation and give you this access to the transcendent, and gives you this access to this spiritual purification as well. I think what opens up is this idea that has been so prevalent in our history, in our different spiritual traditions, of birth, of death, and rebirth, right? So just like in autophagy, as your cells clean themselves out, right, and they make room for new things to come in, right? In your life as a whole, right, as you start in these new cyclical cycles, as you go through this process, it allows for this process of death and rebirth, and you go through this recycling. And so if you can do a fasting process, once or twice a year, right, where you go through these prolonged periods, every year you can go through this cycle of renewal where you're getting rid of all of these things that are not working for you, right? It starts with food, right? You purify your food, you clean out your diet, you heal your relationship with food, which allows you to heal your relationship with yourself, and on, like we said, right? And so you can get rid of a lot of the things that don't work for you, whether it's toxic relationship with yourself, right? You can heal your judgments about yourself, which we all really deal with. You can get rid of maybe some toxic relationships in your life. Anyway, it allows you this time where you can really reflect on all of the different aspects of your life, and it gives you a period where you can identify the things that are working and not working for you. You can set them aside, and then you can evolve, right? Because there are patterns of thinking, there are patterns of behaving, there are patterns of thinking that feeling that we all have in our life that at one time served a purpose in our life, right? But as you evolve, a lot of those things, without us knowing, we don't update our operating system, right? So different fears and different things that you had that at one point in time served, maybe a survival mechanism, right? You've now evolved to a place in your life where you don't need those anymore. But because you haven't updated your operating system and you haven't evaluated, a lot of times we're carrying these old ways of thinking, being, and feeling and acting in our life that, without us knowing, they don't serve us anymore. Right? And so this really allows this opportunity for us to renew and recycle new senses of identity, who we are for ourselves, who we are for other people, who we are in our communities. And it really gives us that time where we can reflect on who we are currently, right? Is our behavior, is the things that we're doing an accurate reflection of who we are for ourselves? And then who we are for ourselves, is that an accurate reflection of who we want to be in our family, in our communities, and in our broader circles? And so I think that ultimately is the ultimate goal of life, right? Is the ability to transcend and move to higher stages of understanding, self-awareness, enlightenment, relationship with ourselves, our families, our communities, our culture, the world, right? And so I hope that you heard something today that made sense to you, and I really encourage you as you go through these longer fasting periods to incorporate these times for journaling, for prayer, for meditation, for bubble baths, for self-love, and take these times of reflection and ask yourself a lot of these questions that we talked about today, and start reflecting on how these internal processes, right, are a reflection of how we relate as an organism, as an ecosystem to the world around us, and allow these heightened senses of awareness to help you improve the quality of your life, your relationships, and your connection to not only yourself but the world around you. So I hope that makes sense, and love you, and we'll see you in the next video.